If you're looking to have a report that kind of lands into your email every day of the week at 7 a.m. in your inbox, then this is going to be a nice build for you. So for most Amazon Connect contact center, supervisors want the ability to receive their reports and then go in there. Mostly what they have to do is to go into the AWS console, and then they will have to manually go and then export their reports and all that. If you want a simple implementation like this is going to be a good and a fun build for you to work through. Let's get right into it. Now, the first thing we are going to look for is to search for SES, which is Amazon Simple Email Services. So on your SES page, what we are going to do is to create something referenced as an identity. So anytime you have an SES or an AWS account, right, by default, what you have is your sandbox version. And with the sandbox, you can't send emails to non-verified email accounts. So since this is going to be a tutorial, what we are going to do is to create an identity for our email address and then verify it. So simply click on create identity, select email, enter your email address, and then you will click on create identity. And what that will do is that it will send you an email. Go into the email and then you will see a link to verify. Once you verify, you are going to get something simple like this. So this is the first bit of what we are going to do. Now the next thing is that we are going to create a Lambda function. So simply must search for Lambda, and on your Lambda page, click on create function. So I'm going to create my function, connect daily reports. The function runtime is going to be in Python 3.4. And then now I'm going to create a custom row. So what I'll do is I'll come in here and I'll pretty much click on create row. And under this, I'm going to update this with a policy JSON. So the Lambda code and the policy JSON will be readily available in the Git repo attached to this tutorial. So what is this permission doing? We are calling the connect get metrics data v2 API. So this is the API that is going to get us all the available queue metrics that we are going to be displaying, and then connect list queues, as the name implies, list the queue for us. When we want to send the email, these are the permissions we need. And then if you want to put something in S3, we need the S3 put object. So this is it. So I'll simply click on create row. This is the new Lambda interface. That's why it is way. This makes it easier to create your row, attach it to your Lambda function. So once this is ready, I'll simply click on create function. So now this is our default Lambda code. Guys, if you are new and then you don't know Lambda function, how Lambda works, you can check out the channel. We have a couple of tutorials on Lambda function, a lot of great implementations that you can always check them out. Or you can visit techwithcorbina.com to get a couple of tutorials there. So this is the Lambda code we are going to be working with. This is very simple. So what that we are doing is that we are importing a couple of libraries, and then we are setting a couple of environment variables. So environment variables allows us to declare value, not directly in our code, but I set them as variables so that in case you are exchanging your code and all that, you are careful, and then you know that all those important values are attached in Lambda itself and not in your code. So if your code gets exposed, it doesn't cause much damage. So that's what you're doing. And then we are setting up a few metrics that you want to get from the API. So some of the things you want to get is the contact handled, contact abandoned, average handle time, average queue time, and a couple of them, right? And then now in here we have a couple of methods or a couple of functions that we are dealing and working with. So inside our code, you realize that we have one, the day window. So the day window is pretty much what converts yesterday and then our time boundaries and handles all that. We have one that gets us our queue names. We have the fetch, which pretty much calls our get metrics API. So it's the one that calls our get metrics API to get us the actual data. And then we have shape totals and a couple of methods inside the code. The crucial bit that we are using for the SES is that currently I'm doing inline styling with the SES. So if you have build HTML, what we are doing is this bit of the code that's a bit of web design, right, using HTML CSS to do a bit of styling of our image template. So the email design that we saw at the beginning of the video comes in from these components, and then that's pretty much it, all that our Lambda function is doing. So I'm going to deploy my Lambda function. Now, there are a couple of environment variables that we need to set as part of our implementation. So the key ones are our instance CRN, we have our instance ID, the sender email address, and then the recipient email address. Because this is a sandbox account, right, or a sandbox version, what we want to do is that we want to use one of our verified identities so that when we send the email, at least we can see them. So all that I'll do is to come to my configuration, and then we'll do a couple of things. The first one is I'm going to increase my timeout for my Lambda function execution to say about a minute. And then I'll click on environment variables, edit environment variables, and I'm going to add the key ones that we need. So the first one is going to be connect ARN. And how do you get your connect instance ARN? Just come to your Amazon Connect page, your instance page, or you can search for connect, click on it, and then you get your instance ARN. So this is the first one. And then there is another one, sender email. For this demo, I'm going to use one of my own emails. So then I need recipient email. For this test purpose, the recipient email is going to be the same as this email. But you have to ensure your email is verified. If it's not verified, it's not going to work. Then I'll leave the rest as it is now. So I'll click on save. So I've saved my environment variables. Now let me come to my code to see if I have all the environment variables that I need. So I need a sender. Okay, so everything is fine. These are the most important ones. So now that my Lambda environment variables and everything is ready, before I connect the event bridge, which is going to invoke our Lambda on each morning, right? What I'm going to do is to test it and ensure the Lambda is working fine. So I'll simply create a test event. Let me click on save. And then I'll just click on invoke. I don't need any structured event for this. I just want my Lambda function to be invoked. So I'll click on invoke. And then this is our result. So we got status code 200. So it means everything is working successfully for this date. So our Lambda went in and then picked yesterday's report, right? And then since there's just a dummy account, an instance that I'm doing this in, the number of queues that were active yesterday was 0. So for those of you watching the tutorial and then building this, what you have to do is that if you want to see this thing work fine, today just place in some test phone calls. Tomorrow morning you get some data in there. Or if your instance is something that you've been using and then you have live calls in them, you should get raw data in there. So this is it. And then let's check our email bits to see if it came in. So I'll look at email, I'll open my email. So good. So this is my email, and then this is it. So just contact center reports for this, and then we have this nice in there. Because there isn't any core live data in my account, nothing is coming in there. But this is the setup end to end, and you have everything in here working fine. If you are testing, it might end up in your spam, especially if you're using Gmail, right? It might end up in your spam, and then you can take a look at it. So now let's do the final component by setting up our event bridge. So now that everything is working, we are going to then proceed to set up our scheduler, right? That which is going to invoke our Lambda every morning, right? Depending on the time you set. So just simply set for event bridge. And on the event bridge page, I'm just going to click on schedules. Now click on create schedule. And then I'm going to give my schedule a name. So I'm going to call it Connect Daily Report 7 a.m. And then with this, I'm going to leave it as default. Then this is going to be a recurring schedule, right? We want it to happen each morning. So I'll do this. Then I'll select Chrome-based schedule. Then now, this is going to be my cron expression. So what I want to do is that I want this to invoke every morning, right? Each weekday at 7 a.m. So the first thing I'm going to enter is that the minute is going to be 0 on the hour 7 for that morning. The day of the month, I'm going to do a question mark. The month is going to be star. So all months. Then the day of the week, I'm going to do Monday to Friday, and then the year is going to be star. So you can see, so now it's telling us that each day, so the next one is going to be tomorrow morning, Monday, this, the next one. So as you can see, this is the schedule. So now I'll leave this as it is and pretty much click on next. So sorry, I have to select my flexible time window. This tells us the time window when the scheduler is invoked. So I'm going to do 5 minutes window when it's 7 a.m. right? And then my target in this case is going to be a Lambda function. So I'm going to look for invoke Lambda. Now I'll select my Lambda, the Lambda that we created, which is the connect daily report Lambda. With my payload, this can be an empty event, so nothing is a problem. Click on next. Sure. Click on next. Then I'll simply create my schedule. So now my Lambda function and then my scheduler is ready and then it's connected. So from today going, each morning at Africa Accra at 7 a.m. day of the week, it's going to send it to my email. So guys, this is how you can set up some cron expression in cron jobs. So as you test, once you create a lot of calls in your connect instance into multiple queues, when you receive your email, you are going to see all that inside your email. Thank you so much for watching, and then let's meet in another video. Kindly don't forget to give us a like, a subscribe, and then drop your comment if you have any questions.